Welcome to The Thriving Mama, the podcast that teaches you not just how to survive, but to thrive in motherhood. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie Davis. In the last episode, we covered what beliefs are and how they can limit our growth and prevent us from not only achieving our goals, but being the person we want to be. Notice I didn't say the mom we want to be. Do you know why? That's because the number one limiting belief that I see both in daily life and in my practice is that we are only a mom. I am only a mom. After we have kids, we tend to put ourselves in a box, what I call the mom box, which leaves us often feeling sad, angry, rage, not fulfilled, so many different emotions because we have abandoned ourselves and who we truly are. In this episode, we'll discuss how the belief that I'm only a mom happens, the many ways both society and we ourselves contribute to it, and 3 ways to start shifting away from this disempowering belief. Want to chat and get more personalized support? I'm offering podcast listeners a free 20-minute Thriving Mama check-in where we'll evaluate your physical, mental, and emotional health and provide useful resources to help you on your journey. You'll find that link in the show notes. When I work with moms, they all know something isn't right inside of them. They understand that they are tired, overwhelmed, stressed, anxious, and irritable, and they often have physical symptoms that accompany these feelings, but they don't usually know why all of this is happening. They will say things to me like, I'm not myself. I don't recognize the person in the mirror anymore. I don't know who I am, or I don't remember who I was before I became a mom. It's really common. I can say that I, at times, have felt the same way. And I ask them, do you only see yourself as a mom? And the response is usually a yes, followed by a lot of tears, and rightfully so, because we just unlocked a massive truth. If you view yourself only as a mom, you've abandoned the rest of yourself. And that's huge, because when we abandon ourselves, we reject our own thoughts, feelings, needs, and desires in favor of others. Let me say that again. We reject ourselves. It may seem noble or feel expected because of society in this context, because we're doing it for our kids, but it's not, and it shouldn't be. How does this happen? This is something that it's a theme we see repeatedly, especially in the world that we live in now. So exactly how does it happen? I'm going to give you 4 ways. The first is the transition from married couple to having a child or more children, or being a single person and having a child. When this happens, our needs, or I should say, our goals and everything focus from ourselves to our children. And rightfully so. Obviously, we have brought a new being onto this earth and we, put everything into caring for it. But we shouldn't do it at the sacrifice of ourselves. So that is something I know I've talked about this in previous podcasts, but transitions, we don't often honor transitions well. We don't, honor the journey and honor ourselves as we go through these life shifts and transitions. And in another episode, I'm going to address how to navigate transitions a little bit better. But if you go back and you listen to some of my previous episodes, especially ones that I've done, on my own, and then there was another one where I interviewed Alexander Ohm, we talk a lot about this. So if that's something you're interested in, go back and revisit that episode. I want to say the one with Alexander was 2 or 3, but this is a recurring theme because I see this in my practice time and time again. And it's not just with the transition to having a child. It's also that the transitions from being, I see it in kids, high school to college to, graduating and potentially having a job or not having a job, going from being a single young adult to married and then being a couple and navigating that and then having children and then all of the other life transitions that happen. But I would say one of the most profound and the one that impacts moms the most is the transition to becoming a parent, because that's when they tend to lose themselves the most. And this can have pretty significant consequences, as we're going to talk about. The second reason this happens is maternal instinct. And again, this is something rightfully so. We as women are biologically driven to care for, to tend and befriend everyone, not just our children. It is a biological drive for us to do all of these things, but especially for our children. And that makes sense. They are part of us. They're our offspring. We really, really want to do the best for them and by them. But again, we need to not sacrifice ourselves in the process of doing this, because as like I have alluded to, the more we sacrifice ourselves and forget about ourselves, the worse things tend to become. So maternal instinct definitely plays a role in this. There are other kind of side conversations we could have, and we might on another day or on another podcast talk about those. But for now, we're going to leave it at that, the maternal instinct, and that being a major biological drive for us. But we also have a strong drive to survive. And that means taking care of yourself as well. The third reason is societal narratives and expectations. I'd say, especially in more modern society, it's been a long held belief that the mom is the primary caregiver. Or now you're hearing more things that, oh, moms can work and have children. There's a lot of things that are told to us by society, culturally might be passed down in your family, or there are things and, narratives and ideas that you hear on the media or see in the media or just, in the greater world around us. But interestingly, traditionally, women did raise children, but they also did so much more in these, kind of traditional societies. We were not just gatherers, but we were also hunters. In certain societies, the grandmas were the primary hunters, not the men. So it's very interesting how things have changed. Women were also like the medicine women or the wise women. They were weavers. They often were the ones who were in charge of the finances or trade and things of that nature. So traditionally, we have had many other roles, but we were also living in typically a bigger community that supported us, which brings us to point number 4, the lack of community and support systems in our lives. Instead of living in that big tribe or big village, we don't have that anymore. And I know you've heard me again talk about this because all of these themes are really important. We've sort of become lone wolves where we think we have to do everything ourselves. But that isn't the case. If you take a step back and look around you, you probably have more support than you think. You just have to ask for it. You probably could get support from inside your house, from other family members, spouses, partners, children, if you have extended family living with you. Those are all people to start with, helping you out. Because in order to honor yourself, it takes time. So you have to carve out that time for yourself. And so that's going to involve asking for help. But then look to, your community, friends, friends in your community, kids, moms. I promise you, there are moms out there who feel the same way you do. And if you talk to them, just talk to them. Say, hey, I was thinking maybe we could trade, I'll take your kids, so you can go do whatever you want. And on another day, you can have my kids. You can do it that way. There are women's groups. Get online and check those out. There are so many resources we have now, but especially post-pandemic, since we've been kind of bottled up in our little silos in our houses, that's not working so well for us. So that lack of community and support is that fourth way that we, tend to put ourselves into this mom box and abandon ourselves. And all of these are, there are reasons that contribute to it, but it still shouldn't be happening. It's really, really important. Like I said before, you need to, care for your children and care for your family, but also care for yourself. That's a really, really significant piece of the puzzle. And so over time, when we abandon all of the things that make us who we are, and eventually that will manifest as relationship issues. I commonly see that as like relationship to self issues. I also significantly see it as relationship issues with spouse or partner. There becomes like divides, issues arise when there probably weren't issues there before, because the more you abandon yourself, it affects all of those relationships. Health issues. I frequently see women have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is autoimmune thyroid from not speaking their voice. That also will manifest as other throat or chest related issues. Weight gain is another big one, because we gain weight too oftentimes outside. Like women will say, I haven't changed my diet. I haven't, my exercise, all of it, sleep, all of the lifestyle factors that might contribute to weight gain. And a lot of it is you're building up this protective armor because you feel like you're needing to shield yourself from the world. And so the weight gain happens. Hormone imbalances are also common. We also have mood and emotional dysregulation. So lots of times moms will say, oh, I'm becoming snappy and irritable and I'm angry all the time. And sometimes I even feel rage, and it scares them. But it's important because those are the symptoms that are really telling you that you're abandoning yourself and you're not really being true to who you are. And another piece of the puzzle is the nervous system dysregulation, or constant, fight, flight, or freeze, because we aren't in true alignment with who we really are and who our subconscious really knows us to be. And this will all continue and snowball until we address it. You can only ignore other parts of yourself for so long before it becomes something. And as long as you ignore that something's going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and manifest with more symptoms and issues until you address it. So I want to help you avoid the mistakes that I myself and many of the moms who I work with have already made. We all went after the physical symptoms and conditions instead of first addressing the giant woolly mammoth in the room that is abandoning ourselves. And it is literally the crux of the whole story, the linchpin. When we abandon ourselves, it takes a toll. Like I said, it manifests as all of those symptoms and conditions and emotional dysregulation, nervous system dysregulation that I mentioned before. And that's a big piece of the puzzle. And so when I'm working with people, we're often addressing that stuff first. Some people will be like, well, don't you need to get into like the symptoms first? Yeah, in some cases. And I'm not saying it's never one size fits all, but at the beginning, we really need to start addressing this. And I'm going to get into 3 ways to overcome this situation and start getting the ball rolling in your favor and you stepping back into who you are. But I wanted to say that when I'm working with people, we end up, I kind of give you like baseline, like lifestyle stuff that we work on, but in a very kind of slow and methodical way, we start working on this. We don't like jump in all, crazy and hot and heavy, but we do start to identify these things, and we gradually, address and bring them into awareness. And so once they're in awareness, we can do something about them. And as I said before, it looks different for every single person. But again, I think that addressing this stuff makes much more sense, because the women and myself who chose to go after kind of the physical symptoms and conditions first, instead of addressing some of those emotional root causes, we end up working on this stuff for so much longer. I'm talking years longer than the people who address the emotional side of things and this self-abandonment, which is an emotional thing. That you can make so much progress in, 3 to 6 months working on that and working on some just baseline lifestyle factors. But if you go after the physical symptoms and conditions first, you might end up working on this stuff for years and years because you're neglecting the most important piece of the puzzle. So 3 ways that I help women overcome this, the issue of self-abandonment and getting out of the mom box is, number one, take a moment to reflect on your life before you had kids. How did you have fun? What did you do for work? If you worked, what were your hobbies? Did you engage in any sports or activities? Did you dance? Things like that. Did you garden? Did you volunteer? Think of all of the things that you enjoyed before having children that stoked your fire and how they might fit into your life now. And I usually have people take action on one or two of them. Start doing it again. If it was a sport, find a league. If it was gardening, start your garden up again. If it was volunteering, find a place to volunteer. Just take action on one or two of them. And you'll see how amazing the changes are and how your body shifts and how much better you feel. And your sense of self-worth and self-love will increase as you do this too, because you're finally acknowledging who you are in all of the parts of you. The next one is to start prioritizing yourself around your house. So this is going to look like, regularly scheduling your showers. Because I know myself and many of the moms I talk to, they're like, oh, I haven't taken a shower today because I was doing all the things for my kids. And I feel like that happens, especially when your kiddos are little. But when your kids are older, you can definitely hop in that shower for, 5 minutes and give yourself a break. Again, this is a tough one when you have little ones, trying to find times for you to consistently eat. Feed yourself, nourish yourself with good food because you deserve it. Alone time. I've definitely been guilty of locking myself in the bathroom with the lights off for like a couple minutes just so I could decompress and get away. It shouldn't have to be like that. You should be able to say to your kids or whoever else is in the house, I'm going to go outside and take a walk around the block for 5 minutes, or I'm going to go to my bedroom and read for 5 minutes. All of these are self-care functions that are essential to life, but also important for you, your health, your emotional regulation, your nervous system regulation. All of that is important. Exercising, meditation, those are all things that I hear moms say, I don't have time for. You know what? You do have time for it. Make time for it. Like I said, carve time out, ask for help from your family. Also, when you do these things, notice when you're doing something for yourself, if your kids interrupt you, first, how do you feel? How does that make you feel? What are the symptoms, not necessarily symptoms, but what are the feelings that are coming up? Because I know a lot of moms I talk to, and I know this is myself too, I immediately feel frustration. But then when I acknowledge that, I realize it's okay. And then instead of dropping what I'm doing, I tell my kids I'm doing something for myself and that's okay. So what I'm telling you to do is, instead of dropping what you're doing, tell your kids that you're doing something for yourself and you'll be with them as soon as you're done. I would say to give them a clear expectation, because that is good for kids, just for managing expectations and boundaries. Tell them if it's going to be 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, so they understand. That's really important. But it's huge, not only because you're honoring yourself and your needs, but you're also modeling this to your kids and instilling to them that it's important, which is especially important for them to see as a child watching an adult do this. If your child is a daughter and you're not honoring yourself, what are you telling her? You're telling her that when she gets older, she's not important either. So that she should not value herself and not honor herself, when she gets older and she has kids. So just another seed to plant. What you do is so important. Our kids see and model and mimic what we do. So we really need to be cognizant of what we're modeling to our children. So modeling self-care and investing in yourself and just, doing things that make you happy and bring you joy are important, because then it shows your kids that those things are important. And in the future, then they will realize that those are things that they should be doing too. The last tip is invest in yourself. This one, I would say is sometimes the hardest, and most often because it's those self-limiting beliefs that we talk about. I'm not worthy. I don't deserve it. I don't deserve to spend money on myself. That's a mom guilt thing, and it's absolute garbage. It really is. These are stories we tell ourselves, and these stories hold us back. So I would say personally, when I've grown the most is when I've invested in myself through things like business coaching or personal training or emotional and trauma work programs, retreats that I've gone on, different forms of education, things of that nature. We need to stop the narrative that, we aren't deserving or worthy somehow because we're moms. No, that's a hard no for me, because we are worthy and we do deserve it. Just, invest in yourself. Honestly, just invest in yourself because you deserve it. It could look like something as simple as a yoga class or some kind of athletic class or, painting, a painting class, something that you enjoy. That's a great start. But it also could be something like personal training or a DIY program of something that interests you. There's all sorts of programs online now. It seems like everything under the sun. I've been on a few websites where you can, learn about ancient Egypt and things of that nature. And I happen to really like history. So I like history and science. So those types of things often interest me. But you could do a DIY program of something like that. You could do a coaching program for health or trauma or a specific goal of any kind that you have. If you own a business or marketing coaching, you could go on a retreat. That's something else that's booming right now is retreats of all different kinds, depending upon what your goals are. If it's health related or spiritual or just travel, there's all sorts of stuff you can do. It might be a getaway with your spouse, just the two of you so that you can reconnect or your partner or whoever it is, even your friends, getting away with your friends so that you can reconnect with them. Or even a solo trip. Sometimes solo trips can be incredibly empowering because it allows you to see what you're still capable of and do things that you want to do. Because even when we take our kids on vacation with us, lots of times we end up doing things that are kid focused or going to restaurants or, that they like and not things that we want to do because we're trying to appease them. I've heard somebody say, when we go take kids on vacation, are we really on vacation? Or are we taking the same set of circumstances and just putting them in another place? And I think it's the latter because lots of times, especially when your kids are young, it is doing things that, kind of appease them. So solo trips can be super duper empowering because you get to do something you want. You get to do what you want all day, every day. And you also, like I said, you can see what you're still capable of. I've had friends who've gone on these solo trips and they've gone like backpacking, or one of them went hunting, which was super interesting. Another one did like rock climbing, and another one went all over Europe, by herself for a short period of time. And yes, it's completely normal to miss your family during that period of time, but it's also an opportunity for self-growth and self-discovery or rediscovery and just all sorts of things that can happen. So that investing in yourself is a really important piece of the puzzle. The last thing that I wanted to leave you with is this. You are so much more than just a mom. You need to step out of that mom box. You may also be a daughter, a sister, a friend, a spouse, a boss, an employee, a dancer, an athlete, an artist, a poet, an author, a driver, whatever and whoever you are or want to be. It's time to step out of that mom box and respect all of the parts of you. And in doing so, you're honoring yourself and showing your family that you are important. If you made it this far, I truly appreciate you. Remember, knowledge is just the beginning. Taking action is what truly sparks change. If you're overwhelmed and don't have enough energy to make it through the day, I invite you to book a free 20-minute coaching call with me. It's a no-obligation chat where we can discuss your health goals and how I might be able to help you achieve them. Visit the link in the episode description to book that call. Until next time, keep striving for wellness, and remember, you have the power to not just survive, but thrive in motherhood.